Okay, wait, I gotta ask you about a couple things. You got a book coming out?
Oh wow, I'm not.
Can I not say that?
It's gonna be announced on Monday, so please do keep an eye out.
You're doing Forward Party, you got the book coming out, and I appreciate that you broke the news here, and everybody make sure you're checking it out on Monday. All right, guys, welcome to the Revolution. That's the show we're doing now to try to revolt peacefully, nonviolent, against the political system that we have now. We're not revolting against the Constitution. We love the Constitution. We'd love to go back to the Constitution. Not revolting against democracy. We love democracy. We'd love to go back to democracy, right? We're revolting against this current corrupt system. So joining me in studio now is a guy who's used to a little bit of a revolt against this so-called two-party system, Andrew Yang. Hey,
welcome.
How you doing, brother?
Great to be here, Cenk. We're gonna revolt against that which is revolting.
Oh, there you go. Okay. It's good to have you back in the studio, brother.
It's great to be here. It's been too long. I'm gonna have to become a new regular.
All right, I like it. So, okay, let's start on politics. At the end, one of our members has a question for you on Noble Mobile, so I'll throw that in, but let's stick 98% to politics here. So you got the Forward Party, obviously.
Yes.
So tell us about that. Tell us why you think we need a third party, and is that the right way to go instead of going through the primaries and among Republicans or Democrats?
I certainly think so, based on the math, and everyone knows I'm a numbers guy. So my question for Dems of any variety is, how are you going to legislate if you can't get 51 votes in the US Senate? It's very, very hard to see a path for the Democrats to have a majority in the Senate unless you can start contesting places like Nebraska, where Dan Osborne just last year got 50% of the vote in polling as an independent, and then ended up at 47% because Deb Fischer, his Republican incumbent opponent, spent $13 million branding him as a Democrat. So the point is that an independent can contest a place like Nebraska in a way that a card-carrying Democrat could not. And that's exactly what you're going to need to form a majority in the Senate. You're gonna need a place like Nebraska or Utah or Montana to be contested in a way that could not succeed if you had someone with a D next to their name in any of those places.
Yeah, now we got an interesting situation where they gerrymander things so much that it almost forces a third party, right? Because it's not just in areas where a Democrat can't win, like Nebraska. It's also areas like Hawaii and Rhode Island where a Republican can't win, right?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, you're not gonna get a Republican to win in for mayor of New York, we just found out, right? As an example, and so it forces folks to start looking at third parties.
It's the only way to have any real dynamism or responsiveness in the system, and this redistricting war just made it worse. And like, look, I get it. If one side does it, the other side feels like they have to do the same. But what's going to happen is independents are going to look up and say, okay, I might as well not even show up to vote in this because we know that a Democrat or Republican is going to represent literally 90% of the districts before a single vote gets cast. And that's not healthy, especially when now 49% of Americans say that we're independents. 2/3 of young people don't think either of the two major parties represents them. So the independent groundswell is growing and growing as their ability to vote for an independent at the ballot box just keeps getting reduced. So something has to give, and our bet at Forward is that you're going to see more Dan Osbornes, more Mike Duggins in Michigan, more Yemi Mobolade, who became mayor of Colorado Springs, a very deep red town, as an independent, happens to be an immigrant from, I believe, Nigeria. He's a black immigrant who became mayor of like a deep red town. So you're going to see more and more independent figures end up rising up.
Yeah, and then there's another advantage to that, right? Which is that once they're independent, they actually are independent. So then they don't have to do what Chuck Schumer says or John Thune says, because they're not in that party. So then they could begin to think for themselves and go, well, yeah, well, I mean, I'm anti-war, good news. Democrats and Republicans are both anti-war, right? But I'll take a little bit from the Democrats, I'll take a little bit from the Republicans, and so you're not just stuck in these forever ideologies.
I'm gonna say two things that I'm sure most people here would agree with. In terms of goals, Goal number one would be get money out of politics, and goal number two would be open primaries and voting reforms. I'm going to suggest that an independent elected is much more likely to adopt both of those things, because if you're in the two major parties, it's like, no, you can't, like give the money away or unilaterally disarm the other side, blah, blah, blah. But an independent can make those decisions because they know that the vast majority of voters would love it if we could make it so that all primaries were nonpartisan or open and everyone could vote, or that you didn't need gobs and gobs of money to influence policy.
So one of the last times you were sitting here, you were running for president on the Democratic Party side. Right?
Yeah, I remember. I obviously won. That's why things are going so well. $1,000 a month to all, a chicken in every pot. Yeah, no, I mean, I'm very proud of the run because I was trying to alert the country to AI back in 2018, 2019, and then here we are.
Yeah, I mean, but it's not like AI came along and everybody's worried about job losses and now beginning to think about universal.
It's not like any of that's happening. No.
So it's not like you were preaching about that. But okay, but you ran as a Democrat. And so now, but some people say, nah, is it really Democrats and Republicans, or is it just their uniparty? What's your take on that?
I think that there's a distinction between the two parties as they exist right now, but that if you want very, very substantial changes, it's unlikely to come from either party. And so I see the uniparty argument that if you want something really enormous and impactful, this system is unlikely to give it to you, regardless of which party's in power, and that pains me. I mean, I ran as a Democrat in part because I had been a Democrat for much of my adult life. I only left the Democratic Party when I concluded that the things I think we're going to have to do to respond to AI and automation will not come from the two-party system. So then, what do you do?
Why did you come to that conclusion?
I did the math. I genuinely broke it down and said, okay, what is the high water mark for either party in terms of its ability to enact some of these sweeping policies? What are the forces within the party? What happened? By the way, I wrote that book forward before the Democratic Party failed to primary Joe Biden and shiv Dean Phillips for the temerity of running against him, and you were in that primary too. I thought that was beyond the pale and egregious in terms of what they did. Like, I thought that maybe they'd say, you know what, it's literally in the name of the party, we should probably have a vote. But they didn't even, they didn't even bother. So like the insularity of the parties led me to conclude that, look, you're gonna need something different.
Yeah, I never put quite together like that. You're right, the name of the party is Democrat, and they're like, let's not be Democrats. Let's not do democracy.
I joked, Cenk, I was like, you should just change the name of your party to the Selectors. Like, or
the Anointers.
Yeah, like we're gonna select for you, and your vote. If you want to feel like you did something, you can vote.
Yeah, so there's now an upside with young people that I'm going to come back to, but first the bad news. So mainstream media, it feels like, I talk about it all the time, but I'm curious your take on it. And you dealt with them at the presidential level, you dealt with them when you ran for mayor in New York, and now as the guy leading the Forward Party, etc. So they're the guys who said, what lack of democracy in the Democratic primary? We're not going to report on it. Oh, Dean Phillips is taken off the ballot, let alone Cenk and Marianne, et cetera, in all these different states. Oh, who cares?
The media was 10 times more likely to publish a hit piece on what a jerk Dean Phillips was, rather than point out that this is a sitting member of Congress, and that they won't hear him out, they won't have a debate, they canceled state primaries on him and you and Marianne, et cetera.
Yeah, and again, they have an excuse with me because of the whole, naturalized citizen thing, and I think that's something that should be resolved in the courts, and I'm positive I'm right about it. But at least they have an excuse.
And there was no excuse with Dean. Dean was like, again, third term sitting member of Congress, vice chair of the DNC, raising his hand and saying, I think we should have a primary, and they wouldn't even hear him out.
Yeah, so that gives the game away, not just for the Democratic Party, but for mainstream media, who then said, no, just like you said, we'd rather attack Dean Phillips than say, hey, wait a minute, why aren't they doing a primary? This is insane.
It was insane, you said it, and I appreciate that you also stood up and fought to make that case where having an 81-year-old historically unpopular incumbent as your nominee was malpractice, and here we are.
Yeah, so now back to hope, because you gave that stat about 2/3 of young people don't believe in either party,
yeah.
Right? So we covered a story a couple of days ago. Trump back in February of this year was up 8 points with young voters, okay? Now he's down 55 points.
Wow.
So he lost 63 points within about 9 months.
That's staggering.
That's staggering, right? Because I think what young people are doing is they're like, okay, let's try Democrat. Nah, that didn't work. Let's try Republican. No, that didn't work, right? So they're looking for a home. So, but if, let's say the home is Forward Party or any other third party that comes along, how long does that take to go from, hey, we got a base with under 30-year-olds, under 40-year-olds, et cetera? Can it be in the next election cycle, or is this going to take decades?
It could be in the next election cycle, depending upon the presidential ticket. And so if you can imagine a young people friendly independent primary with, let's say hypothetically, me, Mark Cuban, Matthew McConaughey, Oprah Winfrey, Adam Kinzinger, Justin Amash, like whoever, Liz Cheney, I mean, like, different cups of tea. And then young people could actually vote in this primary on their smartphone. And then the legacy parties would be left saying, no, that's not real. What is real is waiting to hear what 6% of Iowans say in February. And then young people would be like, wait, no, that's what's not real. Like I'm actually watching these people debate. In 1992, which you and I are old enough to remember, Ross Perot got 19% of the vote and 25% of Americans said they're independents. Today, 49% say they're independents, and it's going up all the time. And so what is the hypothetical ceiling for an independent candidate or an independent ticket? And one of the great things about this independent vote on your smartphone primary is that Americans, young people in particular, would be like, oh, they're actually giving it back to us, the people. And so even if your candidate didn't win in that primary, you'd still be much more likely to support the winner, especially if the winner were to turn around and say, hey, I want all of these people to be in my cabinet, or most of them, or the best of them, or whatnot. Then you could get escape velocity and get tens of millions of Americans say, oh my gosh, we have a legitimate chance to turn the page. Could that happen in 2028? Sure. I mean, like all the pieces are in place. The legacy media is getting weaker, independent party identification is going up. The media environment is incredibly ripe for this.
Yeah, so first of all, I want to just say, he didn't mean Liz Cheney. Don't hold it against him, he didn't mean it.
I was just throwing out names of people that could not run within the legacy parties as an illustration, because if you had a truly independent primary, I mean, like again, like I'm not everyone's cup of tea, like I get that, and so, but the point of this would be to let the American people have their say. And by the way, there are a lot of people, excellent people, that would love to run, that know they would not get a fair shake within one party's primary or the other, that might be drawn to this.
Yeah, and I'm kidding, because who cares if Liz Cheney runs? Like, if the Forward Party turned into the Democratic Party or the Republican Party, although to be fair, these days, in terms of limiting options, the Democrats are much worse, right? So in 2016, the Republicans had 17 people in the race, including an outsider like Trump, not a populist, he's an establishment outsider, so he's in his own category, right? But the Democrats limit choices, but if Forward Party did that, then there'd be no point. So why not? Sure, of course Liz Cheney can run, anyone can run, Shaitan can run.
Yeah, that's
right?
the point, and it's not for me or anyone else to determine who's like an acceptable candidate. I mean, like you have to let the people decide.
Yeah, and by the way, that's the point of a democracy, right? And so if it turns out Liz Cheney miraculously gets 51%, then she won. If she gets 1%, well, then she got 1%. A sad day for you, right? So, and if the people you mentioned run, trust me that people would pay attention. Okay, then we'd have a game changer.
You just need one media magnet. And the fact is, the debate I just described would be 10 times more interesting than whatever's going on the Democratic side or the Republican side, particularly because one side or the other will probably cancel their primary. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, like, oh yeah, we were gonna do a primary, but yeah, screw everybody else. No way, we're anointing. But the more they anoint, the more people leave the House, right? And so now the Democratic approval is down to 28%. But I'm gonna come back to mainstream media because I can't help it. Because when you said something, it triggered it for me. You said independents are now 49%. That's right, and independents are now larger than Republicans or Democrats.
Yes.
Okay, by party affiliation. Do you ever hear the media talking about independents? Like they are always talking about Republicans, Democrats, as if they're the only things that exist. But there's the elephant in the room is independents are larger than both of those categories, but yet mainstream media never talks about that.
Yeah, because the mainstream media has picked a side in just about every instance. And one of the things I might say to you is that Forward now has, let's call it 60 elected officials who are affiliated around the country, including Mayor of Fort Collins, Colorado, Jenny Arndt, who left the Democratic Party to join Forward. And in South Carolina, you had a forwardist who was running on the Ford ballot just win outright to be the mayor. And my fun hypothetical is like, okay, we have 60 elected officials. Let's say it was 600. Let's say it was 6,000. At what point would the mainstream media be like, you know what? Turns out that you can have a third party in America. Look at this army of elected officials around the country. There would never be a point where they would write that story because all of their money is being made in the blue versus red clash. And so if you had tens of thousands of races around the country that are now flipping because so many people have had it, they would just pretend it didn't happen until it started happening where the money center is, which is in Congress or at the White House.
Yeah, and also that money center also goes to them, right? Because and maybe that's how the Forward Party can break into the national conversation. Because if you guys spend a ton of money buying ads in mainstream media, then all of a sudden they're like, ooh, the Forward Party. That is a very interesting alternative.
Yeah, that's a pretty good idea. They're getting increasingly desperate for money. We could be the new pharma.
Forwarda.
Forwarda, it'll make you feel great. It'll invigorate you.
And you said forwardist. I don't know about that. Forwarder? I don't know. We'll have to work on it.
Forwardist is actually a word. Like you look up the dictionary when we were forming. It's like, oh, turns out forwardist is actually a thing.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
You know what?
Webster.
You shouldn't admit that.
Nerdy Asian guy looks in the dictionary, forwardist.
But you shouldn't admit that. You should pull a Trump and be like, no one knew the word forwardist. I invented it. I came up with it. Okay. Actually,
it does sound a little bit like we made it up.
He would go further. He'd say, no one had ever heard of forward. I came up with the word forward.
Well, my joke is that backward party was taken. It might even have been taken twice.
Okay, I had not heard that. That is funny. Okay, now let me drop a hypothetical for you where all of a sudden you're one of the most important people in the country. Okay, you like it so far?
I know, it seems very close to the world we live in now.
So we're laughing a little too hard at that. It's like when I make a joke about me being overweight and everybody laughs in the room, I'm like, whoa.
Wasn't that funny?
Anyways, seriously, look, I don't think this is gonna happen, but if the Democrats picked a corporate Democrat like Pete Buttigieg, well, that could happen, right? But sure. So it's not at all impossible, right? And the Republicans picked a corporate Republican like Marco Rubio. Now that's less likely, right?
Possible though.
But not impossible, right? And you've got two corporate candidates. I think the American people are gonna snap. They're gonna go, no, I can't. Rubio says we work for Israel. Buttigieg says we work for Israel. Rubio says we work for corporations. Buttigieg says we work for corporations. Right? Like, is that a situation where you think that's it, ball game, let's go, we're in this thing?
I think so much of it hinges on who decides to run as an independent candidate, because to what we just discussed, the mainstream media will first, they have a playbook. First, they'll just try and ignore and blot them out. And then second, they will attack their reputation in various ways. So you have to have a candidate who can break through those two layers in order to get escape velocity, because what happens is independent candidates tend to veer either down, generally down, or up based upon their viability. When people conclude, you know what, 10% it's not going to do it, then they go down from 10% to 2%. And so if you have a candidate who can break through and then present a real choice to all the young people who are hungry for an alternative, then you can get the upward trajectory instead of the downward, down the stretch. And by the way, this Ross Perot got a 19%. He actually dropped out of that race and then came back in. So the 19% is something of an understatement of what he should have gotten. And back then, only half as many Americans said they're independent. So I am obviously totally convinced that this two-party system is ripe for the taking if you have the right candidates and pieces in place.
So I'm not even sure you need this magical candidate, and so I'm going to go back to media, and we're going to talk about online media in a second, right? But to your point about mainstream media, I mean, they're amazing. So Trump starts at 1%. People forget that it's 1%, okay? But since he was a celebrity, they're like, oh, Trump, and he starts to rise, right? And people start to listen to him, and then he says, oh, the establishment sucks, and they're like, whoa, I like that message, right? Okay, this is a little self-aggrandizing, but it's an important example. When I ran as a protest candidate. I'm a naturalized citizen, so I've got this huge. I'm a rando talk show host that's online, so enormous disadvantages. First poll, I'm at 2%, okay? So actually more than Trump had when he first started. Zero coverage, none, zero. So they're like, no.
Yuppers, yeah.
Yeah, we're disqualifying you. It doesn't matter. At that point, like Michael Bennet ran, never got past 1%. Tons of people, senators, governors have never gotten past 1%. But when they're running, oh, Michael, oh my God, amazing, Republican or Democrat, senator, congressman. But they give away the game. Then Dean Phillips runs, and he's a congressman, and they go, never mind, we didn't mean congressman. Okay,
so this is my point: is that if you run as an independent candidate, the mainstream media will not give you the time of day. I'm sure a lot of the online podcaster universe would have the person on if they had, something interesting to say, a credible background, like certain level of resources, as someone who's been through a version of this journey. And so if you look at that Venn diagram, it does start to shrink, because the average American, we all know, is like struggling month to month and like doesn't even have time to like go to various studios. I mean, you need someone with a certain degree of notoriety or network or resources or acumen from the get-go, and even then, they'll try and like pretend that they don't exist for the certain period. So like, how do you break through that? And then if you have a degree of celebrity or whatnot, they will shiv you. And then so you need enough following or resource to get through that. Now there are, and you and I know them, I mean, there are like, let's call it like dozens of Americans who I think could run as independents and get 3, 5, 7, 10%. And the percentage would be significant in part because so many Americans are so fed up with the you lose, I lose, you lose, I lose. Ooh, it turns out that people have been losing the entire time, like dynamic that is the two parties.
No, you're starting to talk me into it. Okay, so look, in fact, as you were giving that answer, I thought, wait a minute, maybe we're underselling this thing. So why? So not traditionally, when you think about someone you mentioned like Matthew McConaughey and Oprah and Mark Cuban,
the media couldn't resist that.
Exactly, they have enough media wattage that it's irresistible, right?
Yeah.
So the guy I often talk about in the context of a Democratic primary is Jon Stewart. Again,
He'd be great.
He'd be amazing, right?
Yeah.
And so, but if the Democrats lock down, the Republicans lock down, and they go corporate, then that opens up Jon Stewart for an independent run, et cetera. But then that I've already been over. But wait a minute, the way that you can really catapult a candidate in this day and age is online media. Go on all the podcasts, right?
Yes.
What if a podcaster ran? So the mainstream media, like you name it, Rogan, Dylan, Schultz, whatever, they would all be like, oh, outrageous. Jake Tapper, I mean, he looks so far down his nose, it'd be like Mount Everest, right? Like, a podcast is running, right? And they would, ignore it, ridicule it, etc. But all the podcasters would have him on, right?
100%, because a lot of them know each other. And if they respect and admire the person and think they can have a high quality exchange with them, then they totally have him on. And I mean, some of those people were in like the X dozen I was thinking of, but you need someone of that like level in order, even because it's not that easy to get a top podcast to have you on if you were, Joe Schmo or someone new on the scene.
Yeah, for sure. So but it's a bigger category than I think was previously possible for a candidate totally. That could jump forward, if you will. I didn't even realize it as I was saying it. Okay, anyways. All right. Oh my God, we're already out of time. Jeez and Lord mercy, that went quick. Okay, wait, I gotta ask you about a couple things. You got a book coming out?
Oh wow, I'm not.
Can I not say that?
It's gonna be announced on Monday, so please do keep an eye out. But yeah, I have a book coming out in February.
We're on Friday. You gotta help me break the news.
And I'm here. Okay, I will break the news though. You can't even find it, but it's called. Hey Yang, where's my $1,000? And other true stories of staggering depth. The alternate title was Hey, am I racist or are you Andrew Yang? Both of these things have been asked of me, and it's humorous inside accounts of the last number of years because I had all of these stories I never had an opportunity to share, and so I decided to write them down in book form.
Did you go back to growing up and all that?
I did, because when you start telling these stories and you're like, oh shoot, I guess I have to share a little bit of my upbringing, and then you mine it for humor, and and then it goes from there. I didn't intend to originally. When I sat down to write it down, I was like, okay, I'm gonna start it at this year, but then it didn't make any sense. So I had to go back a little bit further.
Yeah, so you're a busy brother here, okay? So you're doing Forward Party, you got the book coming out, and I appreciate that you broke the news here, and everybody make sure you're checking it out on Monday, okay? So you have a place where you could buy it. So where should they go, by the way?
The easiest thing, if you just go to andrewyang.com, we'll have a link up.
andrewyang.com, that's super easy, okay? And then you got the Noble Mobile pin on your jacket.
Yes, Noble Mobile, let's go.
And so we're doing a partnership here, you can show it. We're transparent, we're not playing, like nobody's hiding the ball. Go.tyt.com/switch. We don't look. I didn't want to do it in the main discussion because the main discussion is enormously important and real. But part of the reason that I brought it up is one of our members, Church of the Illinois, wrote in earlier in the show. Okay, when we were doing the Young Turks. Speaking of Noble Mobile, Cenk, what is the max data amount? Do you know? Thanks. And I don't know. Now I'm putting you on the spot again. I don't know if you know.
So thank you for the question. I have confessions to make. I am a very, very heavy phone user and a heavy data user.
Oh my God, what are you doing? You're too honest.
No, and so I roll through, and there is technically no maximum to a Noble Mobile account because we just use data. I'm frankly, again, like probably in like the top 1 or 2 percentile of data users. And so there is no max is the genuine answer, and we have some people that are testing out what that means. But I use, to throw a number on it, I might use 25 gigs a month, which puts me in like a very high band.
So, but you get money back if you don't use as much.
So this month I used a lot of data and I just paid $50 and did not get any money back. Last month I got a few bucks back, and again, I'm on the road a lot. I travel all the time. I have friends also who are heavy users, and what happened was I was paying Verizon $140 a month before this switch. So I go from $140 to $50. I'm thrilled, and I know $50 is the max I can pay. By the way, the other thing, what was the caller's name?
Well, it's Churchy of Illinois.
Churchy. So if you travel abroad, when I was on Verizon, I paid $10 a day, and then when I came home, I got my original bill again, so I was paying like $100 for traveling, then $140 when I got back. With Noble, it's $5 a day to be out of the country, and we cap it at 10 days. So you can only pay $50 max. We're essentially trying to cut everyone's phone bills in half because Americans are getting screwed. We're paying $83 a month for our data. Europeans are paying $35 a month. And if you look at that, $48 a month times 12 times 20, I mean, you're looking at thousands and thousands of dollars that could go towards your kids' college tuition. I overpaid Verizon by 15 grand plus, and I'm pissed. And so Noble Mobile's hopefully going to save you all that money and stress. You can only pay 50 as a max no matter what you do. And if you use it less, we'll give you even more money back. And you can get off your phone and look at your family's lovely, adoring faces.
Yeah. So I love how you're too honest, because you're supposed to say like, oh no, I'm getting money back because
my wife mocks me. I mean, you've met Evelyn.
Right.
My wife Evelyn's like, you are like the worst role model for this, because I think that's relatable.
To be fair, I know you got to watch at least 2 hours of Young Turks every day, and so that's a lot of data usage.
It's a lot of data. See, you know what we should do? We should exempt TYT from data use on Noble.
Oh,
that would be
good
the greatest
idea. I like that
idea of all time.
Okay, we got to wrap up because it's turning too much of an ad. But it does answer the question of your
There is no
book.
limit. There is no max.
No, but it does go to the question of your book, which is, hey, where's my $1,000, Yang? You're like, oh, Noble Mobile, you get.
I want to save you that money so you can have it, live a better life, and then hopefully we can get that done from the government at some point. But I was like, look, I'm an impatient entrepreneur. Let's just give it back to people as quickly as we can.
All right, sounds good. Okay, but most importantly, guys, the rise of independence, back to the real thing, is for the first, like I used to always say, nah, it's gonna take so much money to run as a third party at the presidential level. I don't know that that's the best way to go. But I have never seen a moment this ripe. So
yeah, you're right.
I don't know that it's gonna happen in 2028, but it might. And if it doesn't happen in 28 and the candidate, whoever wins, Democrat or Republican, again doesn't deliver, then for sure in 2032, there's gonna be an independent, significant independent candidate.
Yes.
So way to lead on all this. I appreciate it, Andrew. Great to have you here.
Thanks
brother.
for having me, man. It's great to be here.
Absolutely. That's why we have open conversations, so we can find answers where others can't. So I love it. All right, guys, much love.